So, a lot of promos today, Alexander. So what have which promos have you gone through today?
Yeah, well, I'm coming directly from Riks FM. Who were interested? They were interested in the Robo series. Yeah,
running down and sitting down in the chair.
Exactly.
On the minute.
I got a Coke Zero there, but I really appreciate your alternative here.
Hold that thought. But okay, so Riks FM, and what else did you do today?
This morning I was up early to join the morning show, the breakfast show on SVT. Where we broadcast this to talk about the series Homo Roboticus as well.
Yeah, and then also P1, I guess.
Yeah, studio at the afternoon current affairs show.
And, and Anders asked the question before, but I'll steal it now. Which one was your favorite today?
Well, actually, I think that the one that I came from, Riks FM, because the questions were very close to what people might be thinking generally about. Oh, AI, is it dangerous? Or robots are going to take our jobs? These straightforward questions that I think preoccupy a lot of people generally.
And what was the format? You said something like 3 times 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's a there's a lot of music, so it's like this general adult contemporary music radio channel. So some music, and then you talk for 3 minutes, and then some music, and you talk for 3 minutes, and so
it's a 9-minute interview.
Yeah, more or less.
Could you give a highlight of a question you got that you really appreciated?
Well, the last question was good. It was okay, you've done all these series about AI, and when I watch them, I kind of get scared because what's ahead? Is it going to get so intelligent that it's going to take over everything and we're doomed? And that's a very straightforward question. And I said, okay, you know what? Tomorrow's Friday and the weekend is coming. I think we have time for some fredagsmys before that and have a nice time. You still have some years to go. And even if it even materializes, because there are some really clever experts that are doomsayers, and there are some really clever experts that say that's bullshit. Yeah, and who am I to choose which one to believe? I just probably would say those are outliers end
of the spectrum, outliers of the edge of the spectrum.
So and I said, so I think probably somewhere in between. That's a boring answer, but the more we know about it, the more we follow the development, the more we can be in power of maybe steering the development. Because if you just leave it to Silicon Valley's tech bros, if they're left to their own devices, maybe they will not steer it in a way that is good for the many, for ordinary people. So we have to have an awareness, to embrace the possibilities as well as steer away from crashing in the ditch.
Yep. But
it's a famous saying there, right? If you want to predict the future, the best way to do that is to build it.
Yeah, but then you're on to it. Then you know where it's heading.
And of course, I need to do a shameless plug. We've been doing the spectrum question. Where on the spectrum do you fall? In the last 100 episodes, I guess.
Maybe.
So we have a good research sample of people
we should
being
write an article about this.
We should do an AI analysis on it. So how do people respond from dystopian to utopian, and how to think about that? And you gave, I think, one of the textbook answers. The other answer that comes up more and more that I kind of like is that we will have both. That in reality, in real world, we will have some parts is utopia, but it's also going to be bad and good things. So it's not either or.
Yeah, and for me, it's very much a question of time frame as well. Because what I focus on in this series is how will it play out on the labor market? How will that change how we work and what jobs are available for humans? And I'm pretty convinced that in a transition phase, there will be losers, and there will probably be more losers than winners in the transition phase. And then tomorrow, whenever that will be, we'll have new jobs that we can't imagine today. And depending on how the riches, the profits that come from the productivity gains using AI will be shared, maybe that will be a future that's good for many people, or not so many. And that depends on the decisions we take today.
But I think this is the perfect segue, and therefore properly welcoming Alexander Norén to this very special podcast episode on the 13th of November, where we actually have poured ourselves champagne in the glass because we are celebrating. And what we are celebrating is, of course, that today Alexander launched, together with SVT, at SVT Play, the new episodes that premieres on AI, Homo Roboticus. And we're going to go all down the rabbit holes of that show. And this is the segue even to say that the first episode will be sent tonight, 10:30.
Yeah, it will be at 22:30, 100 hours on SVT1.
Yeah. So first of all, let's have a big cheers.
Cheers.
Grattis.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
How long time have you been working with these episodes?
Good question. When I do these things, I kind of collect stuff all along. I do interviews here and there whenever I get an opportunity. For instance, when NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang was here in Sweden
You build up material.
Yeah, then he's here. Oh, how can I get hold of him? How can I get an interview? And we were the only ones who got an interview, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then I just sit on that. I take out the little piece on a news angle that might be fitting in the exact moment, and then the rest of the 13 minutes I keep for later. For instance, for this. And then I have these bits and pieces that I amassed during half a year or something, because it can't get too old. And then now I have enough. Now I have to finish it. I need these pieces in the puzzle. So I go out and hunt them, and I ask some boss, can I get some money to do that, some time to do that? And since I've already done half of the job, it's difficult to say no, because I've done that on extra time, my own time or something like that. Then it usually takes about a month to put the pieces together.
And for everybody who doesn't know Alexander Norén, so we are talking about you in the context, you work for how many years in SVT now? Swedish television?
20-something.
20-something.
20-something, which means that I'm not 20-something.
Yeah, you're looking good, man.
No, I just turned 50.
You turned 50.
And I don't have a problem with that at all. No.
But what is your, I mean, like you've been a reporter or journalist, you've been in the morning sofa of SVT.
Yeah, I've been a program host for many years. And lately I've turned from being the anchor of the evening news or morning show to focusing on kind of returning to my roots. I'm not trained as a journalist. I didn't study journalism I went to the business school. So I'm an economist. And then I went to my roots, and for a couple of years I was the tech correspondent.
That's right.
Because I think that what's happening in tech there's an economical perspective on that, which has a clear angle towards how is it changing society and the jobs and how riches are being shared or not, and also to understand it, you have to have understanding for how for business, business models, and why are companies doing what they're doing? Why are they pouring billions into certain things and not to other things? And that moved me over to focusing entirely on being a business correspondent, which I've been for the last couple of years, but still with the mandate or even the wish from higher from my bosses to continue covering tech.
We need someone who has that.
Yeah, so that's kind of my niche.
The combo is an angle that is quite useful as well, finance and tech, or business and tech.
So now I entitle myself Senior Business and Tech Correspondent SVT.
Yeah.
And
you did the first, was it 4 episodes?
Actually, it's 6 episodes about 2 years ago, Generation AI.
So Generation AI is already 2 years old. Was it 2 years?
Almost 2 years.
Oh my God, you were here then when we talked about that show. And I remember when we turned off the camera, we were sitting here, how should you pitch the next season? It should come in 6 months, remember?
Yeah. And actually you wanted to do season 2, but we didn't get a green light for season 2 or something like that. So instead I pitched episodes. And the next one was Fake Factory, focusing on how AI is used in disinformation and
then
information wars.
And that came out.
That came out just before the American presidential election.
That's right. That's good timing.
Yeah, that's why I pitched it that way. And then the third one was AI war. Such a huge chapter that we just felt we couldn't just do a single little episode of 15 minutes on. So Marco, my wingman here, he went to Ukraine and went to the front to see how are they using drones for instance. Yeah. And then we also did some, how is the Swedish Defense Forces and Swedish military industry using
that came out, when was?
That was about half a year ago, something like that, AI war, and now Homo Roboticus.
And used to ask you, put us as a fly on the wall when you pitched Homo Roboticus to your bosses. How was that pitch?
That pitch was, okay, we got two big trends in AI now. We have physical AI, these humanoid robots that are on the verge of taking place on the factory floor or might even take place in your home. And then we have the other big buzzword, AI agents. And there's a connection between the two. And they are probably the best representations of how AI can transform the labor market. So it's a pretty important thing to cover. Let's do it.
Mm. We had the pleasure actually to review a bit the episode in advance. So well done and really well produced. I'm really impressed with the quality
Thank you,
of
Anders.
the production that you have there. So I really recommend anyone to watch it later tonight or later on SVT Play as well. But perhaps you can share a bit about how do you actually do this kind of productions? You said basically you're collecting information from a long
interviews,
time back, right?
Yeah, interviews, and also try to. Since TV, you can't just have talking heads. Yeah. You got to show and tell. So one important thing was to find a humanoid robot that's actually in production or pilot phase or something.
Because you have one episode about robots and another one about agents, right?
Exactly. The first episode is called The Robotic Age, and the second one is called Agent AI. And so that case for the robot we found in Zurich, where the Swedish international company Hexagon has one called E.ON that's supposed to be deployed in, for instance, car factories. And we talked to Arnaud Robert, the head of robotics there, about what are the limitations, what are the possibilities, and why do you even do this? What's the market for this? So what are the driving forces? And then for the second episode, talking about agentic AI, which is so abstract, how do you do TV out of that? I felt, okay, we got to have a case where someone that experiences some sort of problem at the office gets help with an agent. And let's explore what that agent can do and what it can't do. We had I looked inwards because also for production reasons, to be able to, it was close, just walking down the stairs from one level at SVT to the other. And Sarah, who is a production planner, you can say, of the camera photographers at SVT, she felt that, okay, if there's something in my work that I don't want to do, is to take care of the hassle to change the job planning. For instance, photographer A is working 18 to 17 today, and tomorrow he's working morning and then evening. And then he calls himself in sick. How should I replace him? Well, I can't replace him with just anyone. I have to replace him with someone who didn't work late last night and hasn't expressed a wish to not work in the early mornings for some reason. And then she just has to call around and check who is there, blah, blah, blah. And she wants to do more, not extinguish small fires like that. She wants to work more long term and do planned jobs and think about, okay, which photographer is best suited to go to the Faroe Islands for 2 weeks? Who has the knowledge for filming this kind of thing, and talk to the reporter, etc. Okay, let's see then if there's a case, this is a case for an agent, and we took the help of Nils Janse, who is an agent expert, and they kind of worked together with Sarah and gave her sort of an agent platform to work with. to herself, for her to self be able to train the agent. But it was required to tweak this very much. So I mean, it wasn't an off-the-shelf product that you could just plug in.
Yeah, no, it didn't work the first time, right?
No, she had to iterate. Yeah. She had to see, okay, but now it gave me a strange answer. And then she had to give it feedback and say, okay, you can't do that kind of decision. You can't pick that kind of photographer. So it was a process.
And I need to link here that for anyone who's curious about what Alexander is talking about now, we happen to have Henrik Nyberg and Abandli here on the pod where we dissected this working process for 2 hours.
Cool.
So basically, the way Henrik would describe what you said now is think about it as the intern where you need to coach it and feedback. You give it a small task and then you, instead of doing something elaborate technically, no, you give it feedback, how it should work and what it doesn't work. And over time, you build the agent to work as you want it to, as an intern that has no clue when you get in.
Yeah, and Henrik, you can see it in the episode. He stands next to Sarah and coaches her how to give the feedback to this intern so that it gets smarter and doesn't do the mistake again.
Yeah,
and that was quite telling because I've come to understand it as a process. You don't. These agents, unless they're very simple, like book a meeting, look at my Gmail calendar and send an email, that could be an off-the-shelf thing. For what I know, it's probably in Copilot. But when you have these kind of situations, then you obviously still need to tweak things in a process.
Yeah, I got into a discussion actually today at some conference, and the person came up to me and she was really strong-minded in saying that AI doesn't work. Okay, and I said, oh, why? She said, I tried to ask this question and it failed. Okay, so what was the question? And she asked that or told me that and said, no, you can see it doesn't work. Yeah. But could it be that you don't actually understand how AI works and it doesn't have access to this information? And if it doesn't have access to it, then it doesn't work. How could an AI don't understand this simple question? But the problem is so many people, I think, don't really understand what AI is good for and also bad at. So they try to do one-off kind of experiments and then
they get put off and then say, hey, that doesn't work. Maybe they did that 6 months ago and the same tool now has another output.
But I guess it was the same for you. I mean, you had to iterate a number of times. It didn't work the first time and you have to understand and iterate and come up with a proper way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm coming to realize that we're in the phase where that getting AI to work in a good way to its full potential needs some work.
Yes.
It takes some time. It's not just plug and play.
No. But if we just take one step back, this is so obvious that it has very little to do with the technology even and how messy the human life is and our workflows are. If you think about what is really in detailed process, what is in systems, and how much is tacit knowledge that sits in our heads. So if you want a machine to go in and work next to you, in the human environment, we are not limited to one pure software instruction, but they should do a work which is messy, right? When you look into that, of course, there's a bunch of feedback loops going on that we might not even think about because we do it on the phone, like what you explained Sarah doing. And for me, that becomes obvious then that you are building a system when you're putting together an agent because you're needing to secure, do I have the right information? Do I have the right feedback loops? All this. And of course, that is a process to get anyone into the job they're doing, if it's a human or if it's a machine. So it is not so rocket science. If you just take one step back, why is this a process? It needs to be.
And I'm thinking, you need to have that agent or robot next to you for quite a while to give it time.
Yes.
To see the world like you see it.
Yes.
To see what you usually do. To learn what is your. For instance, me as a journalist, I'm thinking if I am to pair myself with a good AI, it has to learn what I prioritize, what is my voice, what kind of feedback do I want, and not be too soft on me. Because, for instance, when I ask for feedback on something, I want it to be frank. So, well, to train it.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that one key to success is to let it in.
Yeah.
And learn, what are you doing? Who are you? What is your context?
So as a coworker, there is an onboarding and learning process, human or machine.
Yeah, and then what's the culture here, for instance?
Exactly. So, but maybe go a little bit back to the fundamentals here. I mean, like, so did you have any specific ideas of rabbit holes that is a favorite word here that you wanted to cover, or did they emerge through the work process, and what were they?
Well, I wanted, one thing is that I wanted to understand really what is an agent. Is it just a buzzword? Is it something fundamentally different from the chatbots and the generative AI that we've seen? Is it just a chatbot deluxe, or is it something else? So that was one thing, kind of to decompose what is it.
Well, let's get back to that, because that's an interesting question.
Yeah. And my conclusion is it's not binary. It's not like here you have not an agent and here you have an agent. But we're always helped by metaphors. So why not? That was one thing. And the other one was obviously, okay, all these cool videos of humanoid robots kickboxing, being kickboxed and standing up and dancing. How much is that hype fake and how much is reality?
Yeah. Perfect. I would love to actually go into those directly.
I think this is a good. This is painting a picture of, like, these were the two simple, very, these we can make TV out of. These are fundamental questions.
Okay, so Alexander, what is your preferred, or what did you hear other people prefer as a definition of an agent?
Well, they all say it's something that has access to different tools and that can act more or less autonomously. So that's a fundamental difference from chatbot. You ask a chatbot something, maybe you give it a sequence of questions or instructions, and then maybe it delivers something, but it kind of quickly gets messy. So that's more reactive, and an agent is more, I don't know if it's proactive, or something more.
It takes initiatives.
Yeah, exactly. So that we should see it as just the intern metaphor is helpful. And also that it's not black and white. You can become more agentic. The more you give it access to tools, the more you design it and trust it to be autonomous.
Like an intern turning into a full employee, turning into a senior employee.
Yeah.
In some ways, you start with the basic stuff, and in the beginning, you give a task to an intern, and she does the task, and what should I do next? And then you make the task longer, and you make their decision-making frame bigger.
Exactly. And the other buzzword or word that comes back all the time is routine tasks and boring tasks. Routine, because then you have some sort of template that you usually use, other mental template or some other something that's very standardized that you use to process data. And so the more routine there is in the task, the easier perhaps it is to use an agent for it. And the other one is boring, well, because then there's a low-hanging fruit for someone wanting to implement it, and that also could free them.
Could I actually challenge that a bit? Because,
some time.
Previously, before LLMs and ChatGPT, etc., there was a very famous saying that, AI will be really good at like 3-minute tasks or these kind of routine tasks. But then they said, the thing that it can never do, or very long time before it can do, is more creative tasks. But in some way, it's turned out that actually it's the opposite in some way. Meaning it actually can be very creative and can actually do things that more white-collar jobs potentially is than rather blue-collar jobs. And especially if you come to robots and physical work, that's certainly something that is far away from happening. So in some sense, the routine task, at least in physical, but I would argue even in digital space without having physical environments, it's also the case that routine task is not perhaps the best use of agent. Would you agree?
Well, if I answered yes to that question, I would start devaluating myself and get rid of myself at work. So I don't want to say yes, but I do agree that I'm on the side of those who are saying, yeah, it can be creative. It can do a lot of creative stuff. So I would probably agree with you.
But let me try to nuance that by using the metaphor or the way Henrik Nieberg explained it on the pod. So he basically understood it like he draws a spectrum. He painted the spectrum. Sitting in your chair. On the one hand side, if you have a very concrete, repetitive task that are very procedural, you should probably even code it the traditional way. You should really codify. You should have business rule, and you should just get on with it. And we'd call that RPA 10 years ago, or we've done it in different ways. And on the other side of the spectrum in an enterprise is the absolute messy reality where no one than a human can survive. And it's a little bit like the code is efficient and really fast and can do super fast. The human is messy and super slow, but can deal with complete chaos. And then he said it like this, but then we have in a large enterprise, we have a lot of jobs that sits right in between here. Like it can't really be coded deterministically anymore because there's too many feedback loops for Sarah to deal with. But at the same time, it is really not chaotic enough that we really need a human to deal with it. And that's a fantastic use case for agents. What do you say about that? So
yeah, well, I think it speaks very much to the case of Sarah's, the part of her job that she didn't really want to do, that was kind of time consuming, that needed her to contact people, to check their availability, to check with a manual, what are the rules for working, what hours, can I even call that person? So yeah, I think it speaks to that.
Because it speaks to the work that is not as easy as we think, but at the same time not as valuable as what we want to put our brain on.
Could it be actually there is better ways to categorize what AI and agents are good at compared to humans? Instead of routine versus creative, I think potentially it could be the knowledge management capability here. So saying that actually humans are horribly bad at some things, especially in memorizing things. If you read a book or read something, it will be really hard, at least for me, to recall most of that content quickly. But if you take an agent today, or even an LLM, you can put like 10 books in the prompt of Gemini, and it can recall more or less perfectly any content in any page in those 10 books. And which human could ever do that? So another way to phrase, the type of task would simply be, if it's a lot of knowledge management needs for it, then probably AI can do it well. Otherwise, if it's more reasoning and agentic capabilities, I would argue that humans actually can do that better.
So in what cases do you mean that humans are better apt at doing it?
So
to present?
I can go into this is a rabbit hole.
But let's take it. It's good.
But I usually use the kind of OpenAI AGI pyramid. So they have this pyramid about 5 levels to reach AGI. And the first one is knowledge management, or they call it conversational. So that's the ability to handle a large amount of text or data in general. And then they have reasoning, and then autonomous, and then it's innovation, and then top of the layer is organizational. So in these kind of things, you can easily see, I think, that even today, AI is much better than humans on level 1. But in all the other 4 levels, I would argue that humans are better than AI. So for reasoning, we can see some levels of reasoning, yes. But if you go any deeper in some kind of a more advanced task, like your work with an SVT to produce a series like this, actually you outperform the AI significantly today, I would argue. And even agentic tasks, because if you think really, the only way an AI can take actions today is to use like pre-programmed APIs or MCP servers that are written for it. It can't use the normal kind of interfaces that we as humans do because it's too stupid today to do it. So it's very inflexible, and the amount of action-taking capabilities that it can have is actually very, very poor, I would argue. But that will change in coming years. But still, I think this is actually a rather good metaphor to use. So these kind of 5 levels, we see AI is good in level 1, but humans are better at the higher levels. So humans will move up this kind of pyramid as years come, and AI will continue to try to catch up a bit. But today it's very clear that AI is only better at level 1.
And you can use that pyramid then to start dissecting which types of tasks is agentic ready. Okay, it's a lot of knowledge management in this, but the reasoning is not that hard. It's about booking a stupid photographer. We understand the reasoning, and the reasoning constraints is manageable.
I can see...
And then you can slowly... Then we start here. And then as we go more mature on how we build scaffoldings and do this, it will just go further and further.
You could apply it to how we produce the series.
Yes, most likely.
You have like 20 hours of interviews with 15 people. In the good old days, I wouldn't say the good old days, in the bad old days, I had to listen to all these interviews, typing down what they say.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the first step was to transcribe it, thanks to AI. And now I have a PDF, it has a timestamp and everything, very good. And then with a tool like Notebook LM, I can just put them in, and then I can talk to the material. And I can even say, and this is how I use it.
So that's knowledge management.
Yeah.
It's knowledge management.
I remember someone saying something about the limitations of AI agents. Now I'm in the part where I want to talk about the drawbacks. What quotations do we have on that, and who says it?
Perfect.
And then in 1 second, okay, this guy said that, and this person said that. Maybe this is the best one-liner that you would like to use.
This is recall in AI speak.
Yeah, and that speeds up my work very much.
Yeah.
So that helps. That's the extra brain that has the memory, obviously, in knowledge management. And then I ask myself, okay, could I use AI also to suggest how am I going to put this piece together? How am I going to do this documentary? Yeah, maybe. I haven't actually pushed it to its limit and tried this yet. Maybe because I don't want to leave it to AI, because this is so fun doing. I want to emerge. I want to be into the. I want to swim in this sea and it's so fun to do. So I think that's why I haven't even tested to see how good or bad is it at doing it.
But I think
that's what I wonder.
But this is where
how
the
much
spectrum and the gray zone that we talked about, what is an assistant and agentic, I think is the best way to treat it. So if you start in the way that it's an assistant, it sits and you waits, and it does the work that you ask it for. Step 1. And then you move up when you master that level together with it, you will seamlessly move up in abstraction level in what you think is interesting and what you can give them next. So I think it's a very healthy way. If you look at how they implemented it at Regeringskansliet, here we have all the different workers, all the different what do you call it? The civil servants. They're all working on very specific reports and stuff like that, and they need to have accountability. So they only go out and do fetch things for the one person who then has full control the whole way. But you can see when you are used to that, when you've done that for a year, that you start drip feeding in that agentic. Do that as well, and actually come with a recommendation here, or and then you're on the way. I think it's the safest, smartest way to do it anyway.
Something that I'm thinking a lot about is how not to become too lazy. And if I rely too much on it, if I take the shortcut of going from give me feedback and then it rewrites something and I just accept it, that's being lazy. Or give me a good idea for a topic for a podcast on AI agents. Make the manuscript. This is the guest. Well, it could be fair. It could be
now you
pretty
touched
good.
a sore point because we actually use agents for that specifically.
But I would use it as a starting point. It's something that if I have brain freeze or if I'm in a hurry, it at least gives me a good starting point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
And that's how I use it.
And I think one way that I usually speak about this is if you take a use case where AI actually works really well today, it's actually AI for coding, software engineering. And in that use case, actually it works not only in a knowledge level kind of way, because it can read all the source code and the documentation very, very quickly and efficiently, but it can actually reason rather well. And it can even take actions autonomously rather well. So in that case, it actually does work better than I think for most other use cases, at least yet, in these kind of bottom 3 layers. But still, when I do that as a coder, I still become this kind of agent manager. I see they providing some recommendation. I want to change it this way. I want to add this kind of code. I want to run this test. And no, that's wrong. I still have the overview in a way that AI does not. So it becomes really clear, I think, to me at least, that AI for coding is really like a window to the future, where we can see how we as humans start to use agents to do more of like a manager kind of view for producing podcasts or other tasks like coding more and more. So I think actually that's a kind of fun example to see how we as humans start to use agents more and more, both in level 1 to 3, but we still as humans have the overview.
But then that means that you still then have to have the basic knowledge yourself. You have to understand coding in order to have an overview.
You have to understand the general concepts, but you don't need to exactly understand how TypeScript's kind of blocks is written like that, or specific details. The specific details AI does really well. But the general constructs and how you build it over, that's...
Let's pause on that reflection. I think it's profoundly important that we understand where AI is right now. Because the logic we are talking about here is that we will simply move up the abstraction level and we will have AIs agentically doing things on lower abstraction level that we are too bored with, or we are not managing this. But then this is also from the point that yes, we might get there in 10 years or 5 years, but where we are today in relation to having this safely done, we need to have probably a human in the loop in relation to the actual work done, not only to let it be. You cannot just drop it in the lab and then use it. You need to oversee it. So you have a quality assurance aspect of this. That means that we are in one way going up ourselves in our tasks, one abstraction level, but we are still working in quality assurance on the lower levels, which then means you need to have domain expertise in whatever you're putting the AI on. Journalism, coding. And I think that's the truth right now.
So as it gets better and better, you might need fewer people actually doing the grunt work, but you still need some people to know how it's done so that you can see that.
But I don't like that phrasing though, because it says that you said needs fewer people. You can twist around and say we can do more things.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Then you still need the same amount of people. It's just you can do 10x more
exactly.
things, right?
And you're so right, Anders. And that's also my conclusion, that you can go both ways. You can use it as a tool to need fewer people to do the same stuff, or you could do more stuff. Yep. And I think the interesting question when it comes to economics and the future of labor is, how will it be deployed? Yeah. And who decides that, and what factors decide how it will be deployed? Yeah. I think it's a matter of whether this AI revolution comes in a time of growth in the economy, or if it comes in a time of recession. That could tilt it in either way.
But I think we have a couple of big rabbit holes that we need to cover in this. We need
to cover the robotics part as well. The time
okay. So then we're parking this, because this is about how we understand the future labor market, and I have a really big rant on using the replacement rhetoric and what augmentation rhetoric means in reality. Is that we need to talk about. You're onto it now.
Start ranting.
No.
We have a topic about
that. We parked that for a minute, and
yeah.
Now we've gone down and starting to build we have so much to talk about agentic. Little bit of a. Then let's do the same thing for robotics, and then we go down a couple of rabbit holes. So let's just flip it now. Now we ended up hardcore in the agentic second episode. So let's do the same thing, priming and putting up the cliffhangers for the robotic episode.
What are some highlights from the robotics episode?
Well, one highlight is when I talked to KTH Professor Danica Kragic about, and I gave her one of those good questions that I was asked today. I asked a question that I think many people ask themselves: will robots take over.
Yeah. Like a Terminator kind of way.
Yeah. I said, no, I don't think so. I think we will integrate more and more. And that opened up an alley that I hadn't really thought so much about. And that alley has Neuralink walking down the street, of course. And what does that imply for us? I mean, this merging of human and artificial intelligence, that I think is super interesting. And that's also why we called the series Homo Roboticus, like it would be an evolution stage in human history.
So Homo sapiens into Homo Roboticus.
Yeah, more or less. And also we came to talk about what does it mean, will it affect us if we have a robot in our homes, once they are capable of being useful more than we are training them. Yeah. We'll get there. How will we regard them? Will we see them as a family member? And if so, or if a butler, who are they going to be loyal to? If we have an argument in the family of how we should, for instance, I mean, one thing that I argue with my wife all the time is how do you put the dishes into the dishwasher? I obviously do it the wrong way, you know?
Yeah. So now whose side is the butler?
Yeah.
This is a very...
How should the butler do it? Who is he or she loyal to? And also, it's a 24/7 surveillance camera. Even if they tell us, and we believe it, that everything is stored locally, can we trust it? Well, maybe, or even if we trust it, will we change our way of behaving? Will we become will we have fights and arguments, calling each other bad things over the dinner table when someone
will you
is
swear
listening?
in front of the robot?
Exactly. So that was kind of, it woke some thoughts.
But and did you sort of follow some of those thoughts through? Do you start what's your point of view on some of this stuff or theory?
Well, on the one side, as I said earlier in the beginning of this episode of this podcast, I think that for them to be really useful, they have to be our 24/7 companion, or at least 24 companion.
When we are awake.
And preferably sleep more than 6 hours. To learn who we are and what our preferences are and what our context is. On the other hand, that means that they are actually watching everything. And well, I haven't reached a conclusion whether I think that is creepy or fantastic. It could be both.
It could be both.
Is that the famous philosophical argument about the panopticon, I think it's called? It's basically they're trying to actually literally do an experiment, a research experiment, to see how people change when they know they're being watched versus they are not. And of course, they do change the behavior. But wouldn't you still say that, we are surveilled all the time anyway? I mean, we use Google, we use Facebook, we use Instagram and so many more, and they have data about every move we make already today.
Yeah. And that's why some people actually think that Facebook is listening to you, eavesdropping.
We have all had the...
Yeah, because they get this perfect ad that couldn't have been placed.
I have an anecdote from this weekend that was so weird. I mean, and it happens all the time, right?
So I get your point, Anders. But I think it's an extra level of having someone that actually listens and sees everything you do.
I think the problem is also that maybe we even if we knew that, even we working on it, we think they are, but it's just it doesn't feel that way. I don't have that relationship to my computer when it sits. So
I mean, do you want the robot to tell you, haven't you had one glass of wine too much this evening?
That's a good one. Yeah. Would you want your robot to say that or not?
I don't know. Or now you're late to work again.
Yeah.
May I come with the humble suggestion that you put your wake-up call maybe 10 minutes earlier?
Where's the hammer?
Right, those are kind of nice. I mean, would you have the robot staying in your bedroom together with your wife?
No, but they are nice, but at the same time,
Honey, why is he standing there? Well, I'm thinking about improving our love life. He has some pretty good suggestions.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Can I
no,
give a
no.
suggestion?
He won't interfere. He's there to give me feedback afterwards.
Okay.
No pressure, honey.
Shit. But a more important question to me is actually, did you have any conversations on, where does this take off in industry, at home? What types of robots comes first? Did you? Is that an obvious answer to that question?
One realization was that it's super difficult to get a humanoid robot actually to behave like a human. First step was to teach them how to walk without stumbling. And the next big thing was dexterity, which we're excellent at, but they have had a steep learning curve. And now it seems like the big challenge is to understand how the physical world works, so that you can, putting dishes into a dishwasher comes naturally for us. But if the glasses look different, this is a champagne glass. We understand that this is not as wide, so you can't put it at the same way as you put a big drinking glass. But for the robot, maybe first this is a glass. I'll just do it the same thing. Oh, it got broke. So understanding these things, I understand is
this is where we're at, right?
Yeah, they still have to learn a lot.
Yeah. But if you were to compare a bit the performance or where we are with robots compared to agents, how would you say they perform in terms of usability today? If you were to compare more the physical versus digital kind of AI use cases,
then I think agents is closer to being useful in daily life. At least if you get some help or you figure out how to tweak them so that they actually work. So that's more a matter of managing the technology to work at its full potential.
And isn't it surprisingly hard to do these kind of things that humans find very easy, like walking? I'm not sure. Did you see the Russian kind of?
Yeah, we should talk about that one. My first thought when I saw this video of, here Russia is presenting its humanoid robot, and it falls down like a drunkard off the scene.
Russian, he's obviously drunk. Yeah, Russian robot.
And he wasn't walking very good. Well,
it was
to begin with. My first thought was, that must be an AI-made fake video to discredit the Russian technological capability.
Do you think it was?
I'm just so skeptical nowadays.
Yeah.
I'm just so skeptical.
It was too funny.
Yeah, exactly. It was almost too good to be true. But I haven't fact-checked it, so I don't know. Maybe it's true, or maybe not. I don't know.
But I think it's interesting here because it goes back a bit to what we spoke a bit about before, that some things AI is really good at and humans are actually bad at these kind of things. And this kind of more of X paradox basically saying that things that humans do well is actually very hard for AI. And just moving about like a robot is very easy for a human, but super hard for
Don't they say that, what's easy for us is difficult for a robot, and what's difficult for us is easy for a robot?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. What do you call that? That's a paradox.
Moravec's paradox.
Moravec's paradox. Yeah.
But we are seeing a lot of improvements, of course. In China, they are actually moving really, really fast ahead. And I saw this kind of video from Unitree, where they did the kickboxing, and it was amazing, right?
Yeah, and what I'm thinking when I see those movies, those videos, is how much is actually happening autonomously as it's supposed to be, and how much is there's a guy with a remote outside of the or a VR headset actually, or with good gloves doing this. I don't know. Maybe I'm too skeptical.
But there's this continuum here where someone is actually with the remote control. And then we have the traditional robotics approach, Boston Dynamics, which is quite procedural, programmed, and really advanced programming. And, how is an industrial robot programmed today? And now we're getting into deep neural network driven all the way through learning, actually learning how to walk the same way as we are learning how to walk, learning how to handle the glass by doing. And I think this is also very tricky when you look at a video. It's fundamentally different techniques how they have reached something very cool.
But where do you think we are then? Given that you have spoken to a lot of people here now about companies that do robotics really well, how much is really teleoperated and like just demos and versus how much is actually robots and humanoids getting rather intelligent? And
I think that the most breathtaking videos that you see of humanoid robots folding the shirts and serving you coffee in bed, etc., are probably the best shoots of a bunch of shoots. And some of these Chinese robots dancing and kickboxing, well, I don't know. I have seen some cases where you actually see a guy with a remote doing this. And some cases I think is more convincing that no, they're actually doing this on their own. But then again, these videos are so well edited, so they could have, let's say, okay, they do it autonomously, but it was on the 10th time that they nailed it. So that's my impression.
Yeah. Who do you consider to be the leading humanoid robot manufacturer today? Is it US, China, or some specific company? Or?
Well, one easy answer is to say that I think China has a good place here, at least when it comes to number of companies that are pretty good at this. In the US, well, you have Tesla, you have Boston Dynamics. Here in Europe, well, we have some. We've mentioned two: 1X Norway, the Butler robot, and then the one that I met, Hexagon. Industrial humanoid robot. And talking to them, it was clear that there is a lot of work to do to make them as autonomous as you would like to. They need this training, but it was interesting. Their way was to train it at work, so that you show them with a human performing the task, and then with gloves and VR set, showing the robot, this is how you lift a champagne glass, and this is how you take it to your mouth,
but maybe,
and then if you do that, I guess a couple of times, and you do it virtually as well, of course, 1 million times, then maybe it will drink a sip of champagne in a natural way in the end.
But I think maybe you take a short breath and you define what we're talking about here as humanoid robots, and just reflect on that, because of course we have seen different styles of industrial robots for many years, and we have seen sort of the robot in the Amazon warehouses, which are amazing in doing different things. But here, what's the distinction now? They're looking humanoid, or they are robots that are made to be designed to be able to go into a human workflow.
Yeah,
without not
exactly
customized.
Exactly, they're not making human-like just to scare the shit out of us, or to make us feel amused, but because they should be able to work in a human environment.
Yeah.
A factory that was built for humans, a home that is built for humans, with tables at a certain height and cupboards at a certain height. So you have to have an arm that is approximately this long in order to be able to function human-like.
And so the definition is not that it has to look like a human, but it needs to be able to work in the human environment.
I mean,
that's the distinction.
Maybe it would be even more practical if it looked like a spider.
Yes.
It could maybe walk easier and crawl under the sofa to fetch something that is stuck there.
But I think this is an important definition.
But you wouldn't want a spider in your home.
No, that's
a spider robot in your home.
That's too scary, yeah.
What do you think about the market's implications of this? So imagine if we compare it a bit to agentic work, we can see, of course, there will be some kind of market opportunities for that. And of course, for humanoid robots as well. If you were to compare the two, what do you think will have the biggest market impact?
Well, first I would think what is the cost and what is the target group, and it looks like, well, the Chinese robots will probably be the cheapest ones in the end because they have scale and, well, just like EVs. Will they be the best ones? I don't know. They'll probably be very competitive. So I think that speaks for a probability that it will get out there on the market and not stay a niche thing for too long. Agentic, well, that's a more wider definition. It could just be the agent that goes out finding good deals for me during Black Friday, and that's such a huge number of kind of agents that we will be using without thinking that they're actually an agent. So I think that is probably the one side that is going to get mass market
so just thinking like
adoption first.
Like a startup now that want to think, I want to make as much money as possible. And then they can choose, let's say they could choose to either go like, I want to go full in agentic and have a super generic kind of agent that can do a lot of stuff in a digital space, so to speak, versus going to the physical space and building a humanoid robot and assume it works perfectly. Well, what do you think they would make most money from?
Then I would talk like a VC and say, stay out of hardware and do software. And I would, speaking from my own experience as a user, say, please do an agent that is easy to use, that has a great user interface, so that I don't have to get stuck in trying to tweak it. And also I would kind of go for a certain sector, a certain vertical.
Yes.
I was talking about Black Friday. For instance, I think these price comparison sites that you have,
it becomes pricing robots or pricing
they're not very good anymore. I want something more. I want to actually say to them, okay, I found this winter jacket. I love it. I don't want to pay 6,000 kronor for it. I can do with 4,000 or even better. Just tell me wherever, whenever it's there. And by the way, actually, you can buy it for me because they often go like this one. It's a 30% reduction.
So I want to put it up as this is when you're free to shop at this price.
And when someone puts that on the market with an app that actually works, then I'll download it and they'll probably take 5% and they'll get rich.
ChatGPT just launched the instant checkout that actually have agents in it and collaborating with the Shopify and many other sites to actually do the shopping for you. And you don't even have to leave a ChatGPT website to do the shopping. Do you think? And
vice versa, when you are with their browser now, when you're out browsing, you could connect this. That's super smart that they actually went that way as well.
What do you think about that? As an economist as well, I mean, do you think that will have, I guess it's positive for the users in the end, because it will really simplify and make the product comparison and everything so much more efficient. But what happens to all the other companies that do this, right?
I think that if you have to get into ChatGPT to sell, then obviously they are a gatekeeper.
Yes.
They will cut in between and everybody won't be there. So I'm much more interested in the other way around. I have this browser that is AI. That's
the Atlas browser.
That sees everywhere I've been, to every shopping site I've ever been, and kind of figures out itself. You still haven't bought that winter jacket. Are you still in for it? Do you want me to ping you when I find it, or should I buy it myself for you? Okay, please do that.
But and here, just to confirm with you, we will see a different buying journey, shopping journey, or the way people buy and search product.
I'm certain.
Profoundly being changed. If you live through the years, and we have been the search economy now with Google, and now this is something.
I'm certain. A shocking thing that came up in my Instagram flow. It was a mountain guide company in Lofoten, and they said, since generative AI chatbots, we've had like 50% reduction of website visits. Before we did SEO optimization. Well, that's a tautology, but anyway, then they were on the top 5 search results when you looked for Lofoten, and they had a boom, good business. And then the traffic just went down. People went to ChatGPT or whatever, and I said, what to do in Lofoten if I have 2 days? And then it scrapped some other sites that obviously were not as good even, and gave them recommended them to go to some other place to buy a guided tour that also was much more expensive. So they were kind of lamenting the development and clearly pointing to how that hit their business.
But this is this thing, right? You need to understand.
And it's going quickly, more quickly than you think.
Yes.
I can talk from the media perspective.
Yeah.
Media houses, they see this happening also.
Yeah.
Traffic going down. And I think, obviously, it must be that we're starting to get our news through these chatbots as well.
We're simply going into the topic in question through a different door in a different way.
Yeah.
And any business needs to figure this out fairly quickly. Otherwise, you're not on the market anymore.
If you're a news organization, you should have a news service, not a news website, not a newspaper, not a news TV. You should have a news service that you can talk to, that is based on your stuff. If you have a trusted brand that people want to talk to, but we have to we need
to figure that out. And also in the point, maybe we optimize for search with search engine. Now we need to optimize for AI agents coming in and looking at your site.
Yeah.
MCP enabled.
Yeah. So that's the whole new market for consultants.
It's time for AI News, brought to you by AIAW Podcast.
Cool. So we normally take a small break, not so small sometimes, but we try to keep it short with some recent news that we all have read and would like to potentially share. Alexander, do you have some news that you'd like to speak about potentially?
Yeah, this week I can't say I was shocked, but it kind of very much stood out that the news that Yann LeCun, the head of AI, so to speak, at Meta, said that I'm leaving you guys. I'm starting my own business, just like all these other people, big brains leaving AI, tech giants starting their own business. But when you see the context of it, it kind of makes sense. I see him very much as a research person, that he kind of doesn't is not so interested in just using AI to optimize how you place ads on Facebook, and also doesn't really believe in this AGI is going to kill us, or even AGI is coming the next year, which Mark Zuckerberg obviously thinks is his destiny on this planet, to bring us AGI. And now is doubling down on that, and also doubling down on application that can be a quicker return on investment. And that doesn't seem to be Yann LeCun's plate.
Yeah. No, but we speak about, and perhaps I speak a little about Yann LeCun as well, and I see him a bit as a hero as well. And I feel a bit sad because Meta spent like hundreds of billions of dollars to get new type of people in, and even had this kind of 100 million signing bonuses for people coming in and starting this kind of new AI lab in Meta called Meta Superintelligence Lab. So you can see that he's been surpassed now, and it's kind of sad because they basically failed with their latest AI model, the Llama 4. It didn't really perform at all, and even cheated to get on top on some leaderboards, and that's horrible. I mean,
that's a certain intelligence.
No, so I mean, they failed in that aspect in many ways. But I still feel bad for that because, as you say, he is mainly a researcher and he thinks very long term. So I'd just like to give a few minutes to explain why. And also...
No, but let me do a segue. So and I bounce back to you, because now you took sort of the Mark Zuckerberg way. You didn't deliver well enough on this. If I now go put the Yann LeCun hat on, he's been one of the and now this is the segue back to Anders. He's been basically telling the whole AI world, the path you're on with LLMs and autoregressive type systems will not lead where you think. It can never work. You need to go another route. And he published the JEPA paper and that whole architecture, which, so if I'm trying to make Jan look good. He says, well, you know what? I'm leaving the sinking ship. You're all doing it wrong, and I'm going to start my lab that is doing it right. If you look at from Mark Zuckerberg's well, your Llama 4 wasn't that great. And then for anyone who then saw these signing bonuses, and then they saw that they organized these people not under the helm of Jan LeCun, but on the side, this was a given 6 months ago that this was in the cards. Yeah. And now, the thing is, at this table, we think Jan is right. So let's, why, if we think about his leaving, not because he's got fired, because he has other ambitions, let's go that route, and please elaborate, Anders, a little bit.
I mean, we know basically how these kind of big generative models work. They have this kind of very simple and general kind of objective, meaning predict the next token or predict the next patch of an image. And that's actually really cool and actually very value creating for a lot of businesses, because it means it can be used in a very general way, and you can simply prompt it and you don't have to fine tune it as much as previous type of AI has to be done. So that's really powerful. But if you then scrutinize that a bit more, you have to realize it has to go through these kind of billions of parameters in a single pass, forward through the network to get a single token, and then go through the full pass once again for every single token. Extremely inefficient, and obviously not how the human brain works. So what he's trying to say is that we should have some kind of latent space reasoning. And that's what the JEPA paper is about. So instead of having to go from a token space into some kind of latent space in the middle of the big ChatGPT or Gemini model, and then back to a token, moving from syntactic to semantic to syntactic, and then syntactic, semantic, syntactic, and then do that for every token, is obviously, as I see it, very, very inefficient. And that's what he's speaking about in JEPA. Now,
does he mean that there's a way to stop halfway, so you don't have to go all the way?
So the idea then is like the beauty of the transformer is how fundamentally simple the logic is, that you're just predicting the next word or the next token. But that beauty also means that the way you're lighting up the whole LLM for any work is completely inefficient.
Yeah. So the idea is to take a shortcut and not have to go to the syntactic space.
You shouldn't have to light up the entire factory just to fetch a screwdriver that is next to the entrance door. You should perhaps light just a couple of bulbs.
Yeah, more or less, yes. So to avoid having to, decode and encode tokens all the time and just move in the semantic space. If you think about the human brain, it's easy perhaps to understand. We have the cortex that we're thinking in. So if I'm playing chess, I'm not like moving the places around all the time. I'm actually thinking in my head a number of steps back and forth, and then I'd make a move. So similarly, an AI model could think a number of steps without having to produce a token or take an action. Just think through inside the conscious part of the brain or in the LLM. And that is basically latent space reasoning then, so that Jan LeCun is speaking about. And now we've seen a number of papers. Just in the recent 1 and 2 weeks, we've seen like 3 major papers, one actually from Meta, going in this direction. So there is one called, let's see if I can get it right, looped language models. So looped, instead of traditional language models that go one pass through the whole model, it's looping inside, right? So it's going into the model and then looping around there, doing a set of inference steps inside the model and then doing the decoding. It's exactly this, right? This actually did not came from Meta. It actually come from China and ByteDance, the TikTok company. So they had actually really good progress with this, with the looped language models.
Does that mean that you need to use less energy, hence it will be cheaper?
Yes.
Yes. To a large
and
extent.
you might not have to buy so many of the latest NVIDIA chips.
Yes.
Yes.
That's why it comes from China.
Very good point. They actually only have 7 billion parameters, which instead of having trillions like GPT has, so it's at probably at an order of 100 or 1,000 smaller models. So it's
Equally
faster
smart.
and cheaper, but they actually perform as well as 100 times bigger models.
So we are now talking about fundamental ways that the architecture needs to be reinvented one more time.
So
the
basically-
architecture is not done yet.
Jan LeCun and these Chinese guys, they've figured out that you don't need a Ferrari to go to the grocery store to fetch some milk.
Yes, well said.
In a way, it's that simple, right? And in a way, it means also, that this is how we do things we learned what we have done, but we need to figure out other architecture to be more memory efficient, more reasoning efficient, etc.
So another paper then is actually coming from Meta, but in this case, instead of producing every token each time, what they actually do, they call it LLMs with future summaries, meaning they predict like a summary of what's coming instead of having to do one token at a time. So it's like they produce the end result in one shot instead of having to take one token at a time all the time in the classical kind of autoregressive way. So it's also exactly what Jan LeCun has been speaking about. It's not coming from FAIR, Jan LeCun's lab in Meta. It's actually from another part. But also one direction, that they're going in this direction is no question in my mind. And then a third one actually coming from China as well, in Tencent, the WeChat kind of company. So they had a model called the continuous autoregressive language model. So they call it autoregressive. I think it's questionable, but still. So what they do, they produce, instead of a token, they produce a vector. So it's kind of embedding vector. So they don't go to the syntactic like language, a token, a word. They instead have just a vector representation, basically a set of numbers. This is a latent space. So they predict, not token by token, by a set of vectors that is more semantic, not syntactic, to then further predict what's coming. So obviously that's much faster as well, and you don't have to do the encoding to the English language anymore. You can just think inside your human brain or in the semantic space, as they call it. So it's called CALM, or continuous autoregressive language.
Would you say that these kind of different ways are more human-like, brain-like ways of processing? And
yeah, I mean, given the brain is basically operating at like 20 watts in inference mode, and these kind of LLMs, even in inference mode, they're probably 1,000 times less energy efficient. So they use like 1,000 times more energy probably than the human brain does, even for pure inference mode, not even counting the training that happens there. So yes, this is significant.
But and you can Kahneman talk about system 1 and system 2 thinking, right? So we have some things that are optimized for this and some that is optimized for that. So literally, we don't have one big monolithic thing in the middle. We have different parts of the brain that is doing different things in orchestration. And we are lighting up reasoning space when we need it, but we are not lighting up reasoning space when we're walking. So something here is about architecture, yeah? And I think even in the original JEPA paper, he's using more, what's the word?
He doesn't
energy
speak
space.
About type 1 or 2 in that one.
But no, but it's energy space.
But it's still not.
As I've understood it, we actually really don't fully understand how the brain works.
No, we don't.
But do you think that we will figure it out the back way, trying to figure out how AI to work?
I think we can still be inspired, but you can also say that it's perhaps not best to just emulate exactly how the human brain works. Just as we are flying airplanes, we don't simulate how the bird, flaps the wings. Right?
They did that in the beginning.
Yeah.
It didn't go so far.
But I think we are the experts. I think is quite on the same page that it's a different type of intelligence. So AI and the way it works and what it's good at and how we can understand intelligence, it's really dangerous to look at it with our eyes or from the human perspective.
Just to give an example of that, we know AI is so much better than humans in knowledge management. It would be stupid to remove that. So obviously we need to keep the part of AI that is really good, but then we need to figure out the problem or some solution to the bad parts, which is the extreme energy inefficiency that we're seeing right now. And this is basically what all these papers are doing. And this is also what Jan LeCun, I think, is partly trying to go to. So I think still he's right. It's a bit sad that he was pushed out more or less from Meta.
But just to get out of the real rabbit hole, how is this useful or relevant for normal people or for Alexander? I mean, I think the bottom line is that we are so early into the architecture of this work. So it's a little bit like we figured out how to do a steam engine locomotive. And someone said, we're probably not going to have steam engines. I think we should have diesel. And we are right about that cusp where architecture's fundamentals are the same, but we are still figuring stuff out.
It's funny you mentioned the steam engine because I've just been diving into that as well, the Industrial Revolution and parallels to the AI revolution, because I met this year's Nobel Laureates in economics and they talk a lot about it. And they have very interesting and strong opinions about whether AI will kill the jobs or
Let's get back to that because we are holding
or
on that
be a
topic.
great future for us.
Yes, but let's keep that discussion because we really want to go there very shortly. Perhaps just one more news article.
Well, we should just keep going. Which news article did you want? Oh, yeah. Okay, 5.1. Okay.
Very quickly.
Do it quickly.
It's not a big...
Do that while I take one of these wonderful little munchies.
So yesterday, OpenAI released ChatGPT 5.1. And then you can think about what that was. And I would say it is a point release, meaning it is an incremental release. But I think it's just improving a bit the styling of the
What
language.
extra do we get?
Exactly. So they claim, they don't care about leaderboard scores anymore. They want to have a more natural type or style of language. And that's it's improving in this way.
And how do they do that?
Yeah, who knows? They haven't been saying that. I think it's rubbish because they have been trying to get in the top of the leaderboard for a long time, but more or less all of this year, they've been trailing behind. If you go to the LM Arena or other type of leaderboards, OpenAI is nowhere to be found in the top scores anymore. So for images, obviously it's Google and Gemini and the Nano Banana. And
Couldn't you please just give me the quick one, according to you, which is good at what?
yes.
Of the top 3, 4.
Okay, so there's a number of categories here. Images, obviously Gemini and the Nano Banana one, I would say. And if you go to LM Arena, etc., they are in top of the board in a number of these kind of image and video kind of benchmarks. For coding, no question that Anthropic and Claude is the best one. And they're also leading in all these kind of benchmarks as well. And you can feel it when you do AI for coding. Claude is awesome. Then for more textual based, actually Anthropic and Claude is gaining there as well. Usually actually ChatGPT was one of the best ones
You're
there.
talking about text.
Yes,
Yeah.
just managing text.
Writing, whatever you want.
Yeah, I do that a lot. So I've tested them on I'm writing a book, for instance, and trying to get help.
The strange thing is that if you look at the research results and the leaderboards, GPT is not performing well. But I must say, from an anecdotal point of view, when I just compare Gemini or Claude and OpenAI, I still prefer ChatGPT. I don't know why. I know it shouldn't be that case if you look at the research results. But in some way, I've gotten a bit used to it. So this is very anecdotal, though. So
But we said it before. The benchmark says something, but then it's something about what you are using it for in specific
Yeah, I was
your
thinking that.
context. So you get a preference what gels with you. It's like personality.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder, this benchmark, does it kind of say something about how good can it be? How fast can you drive this car? Yeah, this Porsche goes 320 kilometers an hour. Okay, but normally I just drive like 80 kilometers an hour. What is the nicest feeling when I drive 80 kilometers an hour?
Right. So that's why benchmark is very, very useful to get some sort of scientific view on it. But I actually think anecdotal is important.
But still, LM Arena is not doing it in the normal kind of accuracy sense. It's actually having humans doing blind testing on it.
Okay.
So it is actually preferring the style in this case. So you can actually measure this also from a more subjective point of view, I would say. And even there, GPT is nowhere to be seen. It's nowhere. I mean, it's
the top
position
3 to 4.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not. But it was so in the lead. If you go back 2 years ago, that is.
Yeah. It was dominating.
It was dominating like hell.
So I've been saying, beginning of this year in 2025 will be the year that OpenAI start to decline and not be the frontier lab anymore. And I think we're already there. And I think that will continue.
Now, when they're investing more and more and more and more and more, other companies are investing in the fact that they will be the leader.
And they are the leader in terms of normal people using a chat type LLM. I think they are by far the market dominant.
Yeah, but isn't
actor.
Gemini catching up pretty fast?
It's hard to. It's really
Claude
hard to reach.
Dominating in enterprise, though.
In enterprise and in coding, if any coders we had, I mean, like anecdotal, for real software engineers, it seems very clear.
Just a last question to you, Alexander, because I'd love to hear you. I'm not sure if you met or spoken to Sam Altman at any point.
No, I've just been 1 meters from him, him passing me by in Davos at when he sat there with Satya Nadella and had a fireside chat or whatever.
Because it was this kind of court case where Ilya Sutskever, who's one of the founders of OpenAI, revealed a bit what happened when they fired Sam Altman 2 years back. And they were not holding back in how they really distrusted Sam, thought he was really illoyal, he was lying, he was trying to manipulate people in the board, etc. It was really, really damaging words about Sam Altman.
Yeah, I read, or I didn't read, I listened to a book that tells the story of OpenAI and Sam Altman.
Yeah.
It's something about empire. It's a very good American journalist. Empires of AI or something like that.
Okay.
That kind of gives you that picture that he's a super smart and also very emotional, intelligent person that knows how to play the game.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see.
We need to go back.
Yes.
So 5.1, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah.
Nah. Okay. Let's go back to the real questions. And I think we should jump as far as we can into the real meat of things. Where do you want to go first? Because
I mean, let's go that we're spoken about, or is it job market, or is it, which one did you think of?
I mean, like the whole job market thing is very interesting, but I think we can even get into that better by actually, you have been talking to Nobel Prize winners, give us this sort of, give it to us. Well, I want to be starstruck. Who did you talk to?
Me wanting to jump into AI rabbit holes have been very lucky with the past couple of years of Nobel laureates in, economics. It's actually called the Swedish Riksbank's Prize in Economics Sciences to Alfred Nobel's memory, whatever. Last year you had Daron Acemoglu and Simon Johnson as two of the three who are happen to be very much into researching about AI and the job market.
So when you are asked to do a Nobel Prize interview, you put some AI.
Yeah,
flavor
sure,
in
of
this,
course. And I actually, Simon Johnson is in this Homo Roboticus series. But also this year then, Philippe Aguillon, Joel Mokyr, and Peter Howitt, where maybe Philippe Aguillon is the star here, who has a research center focusing on AI and how it's transforming the economy, and also Joel Mokyr, which is the portal figure of how to understand the Industrial Revolution and its implications for the economy and why it even happened, is really enjoying talking about the parallels and to this Industrial Revolution with AI and what we can learn from it.
Okay.
So they're full of ideas. So it was really interesting year as well for the Nobel economics.
Let you. So we now have these guys.
Okay, I can be the spokesperson translating what they say. Okay, Philippe Aguillon, he thinks that, don't worry about the jobs. So many more will be creative. We just don't know which they are today. It has happened many times before. This time is not different. Okay, that philosophy. But hey, it might be a transition period that's not so easy when old jobs get displaced and there are not enough new ones having emerged yet. So we need flexicurity.
Flexicurity.
Yes, the Danish model, the Danish work labor security model.
Is that a word?
Yeah,
flexicurity.
Here in
That's
Sweden,
nice.
they protect your job. It's difficult to sack you, okay? So a business that wants to move direction will not do that easily if the workforce doesn't have the competence to go in that direction. In Denmark, the difference is, flexicurity is, we don't protect your job, but we protect your income. So, hey, businesses, sack them if you want to, but the government, the state, is going to give you a good unemployment benefit for a rather long time, and you're also going to give you some coaching for reskilling and finding a new place to work, and that seems to have caught his attention to the extent that he mentions it in every other sentence when you talk about the challenges to the job market coming with AI. So that's one thing. And the other one, he's very preoccupied with Europe lagging behind.
Yeah.
When it comes to why don't we have any tech stars like the US or China? Why do we have just a couple and they're not as big?
And does he have
them?
an analysis or simple answer or?
Well, his quick answer is the Draghi report. The Draghi report. If you just do what Draghi says in this famous EU report about how Europe should regain its competitiveness and growth. One thing that he says there is, we have a lack of capital market. We have 7 different ones, and there's not enough of money in one pot here. So that if you grow, you have to go and find VCs in Silicon Valley, and then you get quoted on the
Then you're American.
Yeah, on the American stock market, and then you're just American, or at least you move there. And the other one is, we have to get the different markets together as one true common market. Because today, if you're a tech startup in Sweden, you'll probably have to understand how the German system works when it comes to different regulations, if you're in fintech or whatever.
So costly.
So
you do it over and over again.
Yeah, so it's not one market and all that stuff. That's what he talks about.
And that's the
a lot.
report.
Yeah, exactly. And then Joel Mokyr, who is the grand old man, the history teacher par excellence, who has read everything there is to read about the Industrial Revolution and has written everything there is that is worth to read about the Industrial Revolution and everything that has to do with it. He says, well, you know what? I won't be so worried. This is just the same thing. It will take some time, but it will sort itself out. Sort like that.
So two Nobel Prize or 2 real experts who really says...
Yeah, well, they're calming the people who think that this will lead to technological mass unemployment. That's their stance anyway.
Yeah.
And I know you spoke to Simon as well.
Yeah, he's a bit. It's interesting. You can just because you're a Nobel laureate doesn't mean that you besit the truth, because the truth isn't out there. It's not binary.
So
it's
you
not
have
black
2
and
in
white,
one corner,
right?
Simon in the other corner
Yeah,
now.
and Simon Daronajamolu happened to be part of the other fraction, which is more worried about the development. And they say, fine. I read you. The Industrial Revolution, before there were 40% peasants and farmers, and now they're like 4, and we don't have 36% unemployed people. Oh, there'll be new jobs. You don't miss the gas lighters or the elevator operators. But it took like 50 years for the Industrial Revolution transformation to pan out, and actually eventually, thanks to labor movements asking for rights, asking for raises, asking for better working conditions, to become something that was good for the many. That's their stance.
So the stance here is that it's all about perspectives and time horizon stance, because
that's a good conclusion.
For 50 years of pain,
it's not nice.
That's a lot of fucking
That's a generation that's wasted.
That's a generation waste. Even if the macro.
Then the silver lining might be then that this is going to be so much faster that it might not be 50 years, but it could also be more impactful in less time.
Because in 50 years it's slower to happen, and it moves on slower. What would happen if that same thing happened in 5 years or 15 years? Isn't that what leads to revolution and
would
war?
Have dictatorship.
Revolution and war.
Then populism would grow exponentially.
If
I'm sure.
You do what happens,
because you would have social unrest.
Social unrest. Take the same change in 50 to 5 years. You have so much social unrest, so you have a growth.
But then at least we have time to figure out, how do we transit in a sensible way?
No, but the tricky point is that when it goes in 5 years instead of 50, you're so dizzy and you're like, so when you wake up, which one is up or down, left or
I
right?
understand what
And then
but
someone ran with it like Elon.
I don't think it's going to be 5 years, because that's another thing that I've come to think about a lot, that it will be much slower than we actually think, many of us, and definitely slower than the techno-optimists, and definitely slower than Sam Altman and that kind of people.
Elon Musk says AGI this year.
Yeah, sure. And he said that we would have self-driving cars for like 10 years. But my point is, human beings and organizations being composed of human beings are actually quite slow.
Yeah, agree.
To change your way of working,
Yes.
don't do that overnight. Path dependence.
So it's the difference between technological progress versus societal
Exactly.
difference.
It goes
right?
so much faster.
Yeah, and now you're back to...
And that will actually pop the AI bubble.
this is
The
interesting.
financial one.
So
When the discrepancy has
there's
gotten
an
too
interesting-
big.
There's an interesting topic of... I had a conversation on bubbles,
Hmm.
good bubbles or bad bubbles, so good bubbles or real bubbles.
This is good bubbles.
Yeah,
The ones in
let's
my
start
glass.
there.
Yeah.
No, but the analogy was that some bubbles, which has crashes, but it built there was infrastructure and things being built through the
Sure.
bubble that we now then reap the benefits out of 20 years later, like the
Railways and the fiber
internet,
cables,
Wow.
and the data centers with the GPUs that will be worthless in 3 years,
I don't know. Yeah, but
but the algorithms will stay.
But didn't Simon Johnson say something else? If I'm not mistaken, he spoke a bit about the risk of concentration of power a bit as well.
Yeah, and yeah, he had a funny anecdote. He has met Sam Altman.
Yeah.
He was invited to some round table with Sam Altman and company, and Simon raised this preoccupation about, well, will this really be good for the many? Are you doing this so that people can have a decent living? I mean, are we deploying AI to enhance humans instead of replacing them, etc.? And then, according to Sam Altman said, oh, don't worry about such worldly things, kind of. Once we have kind of reached AGI and we've reached these grandiose targets, then Nirvana will be here. It will be so much, it will be so good, it will be so much riches that are released, that there will be plenty for everybody. And I think that is a very interesting perspective. And I've heard Sam Altman in several interviews getting this question about, okay, but what if AGI, or when we have that, what will be left for humans to do, and what will they make a living of? And the answer is universal basic income might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, but have you really thought that through in all the steps? Do you know how much money would be needed for people to have a decent universal basic income? And the next step, do you know how much taxes we would have to tax you as a person and your business to get that money, to reap that money in? And will you stay in our country then, or will you go to the Cayman Islands or whatever place that wants to be the new Ireland for the world? I don't think they've thought it through.
You don't think?
And maybe also, have they thought about, is that what we want?
You don't want universal... Okay. If we're going to the final question, let's skip the final question.
Good luck segueing back now.
Yeah.
Andy.
No, we're here now. We're here now. We stay with it.
If we
This
go
is
with
great
the
stuff.
very utopian kind of idea that we actually have a world of abundance, meaning that the cost of products and services go towards zero, meaning that you can live for free, you can get food for free, you can more or less, have energy for free. Of course, it won't be free, but it's getting significantly cheaper potentially because AI is doing most of the work. Wouldn't then UBI potentially, without having to be that expensive, still cover the
You mean
basic
that
needs?
then we wouldn't need so much money?
Yeah, UBI wouldn't be as costly because the cost has gone down.
Very good replication. Very, very good argument back. Well, that would need for things to be so cheap then, right? And if everything were to be so cheap, well, actually, in my mind, this would mean an enormous deflation. And it would probably be the result of not having growth in the way that we are thinking about growth.
Could be a Star Trek kind of future.
Yeah. Actually, Anders, it's so mind-boggling that I have to think this through in steps to give you an answer. I'm not sure. I don't know. Let me get back on that one. But it's an interesting path to go.
But just to continue also, some rant that we have been doing for many, many years now in this podcast is the AI divide, as we call it, the concentration of power. And some people that are a bit more scared about AI are claiming that, whoever gets first to some AGI or even ASI, meaning superintelligence, will have an extreme power. And perhaps that's why they're investing insane amounts of money now in infrastructure, because they realize, AI will be used everywhere by everyone all the time in the future. And they need to have the infrastructure for it. And the one that actually controls that will, make a lot of money. I mean, it's insane amount of investments. Like Stargate is $500 billion. It's the amount of GDP of Sweden, right? But before we get there, if we believe that this could be the reason that they are investing extreme amount of money now for some tech companies, it could be that they believe that it will lead to a lot of return. Mm-hmm. It would be strange otherwise, right? So they should believe that this will result in a big return and that they will have much more power. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that then be really scary that it will be a few set of companies that will have an extreme amount of concentration of power?
Yeah, I agree with you. And whenever you have a concentration of power, you have less innovation. Whenever you have
you mean the market?
Through a market perspective. If you just have like 3 tech giants absorbing 80% of the market, every new startup that will kind of threaten them will probably be bought up by one of them.
Yes, which is happening more.
And then you
already.
kill competition. Then there's not enough innovation, and then they will be more preoccupied with maintaining their power, refining, doing a GPT 5.1 instead of doing a Jan LeCun, whatever, that kind of twists everything around.
But aren't we already there in some sense? Because the big tech giants, they are acquiring companies. As soon as someone in Europe or in Sweden is getting some kind of success, they usually get an exit by being acquired by a tech giant. So we are almost there already.
Well, I think it's interesting to look at France and what they are trying to do with Mistral.
Yeah,
I met them a couple of weeks ago when I was in Paris to meet with Philippe Aghion, the Nobel laureate. And I realized I hadn't really understood their business before. I thought that they were kind of, my prejudice was, and it was reflected in my first draft of questions. How are you ever going to be successful with a 10th or 100th of the money that the American tech giants are deploying on this? But then I did some research and I realized, okay, that's not their game really. They are more into business to business and making the AI agents, but big fancy ones, work. So they're kind of a consultancy as well as developing their own model as a foundation for this. And they seem to be driven by this European independence, digital sovereignty thing as well, which I think is really a worthy endeavor. Because geopolitically, it's not wise to be dependent on one or two other nations' benevolence.
Of course.
However, are we going to be truly independent and have politics that cares more about our good if we are in the hands of others?
But we have done on this pod a couple of times where we are trying to look, we are trying to pull the curtain away from all what is talked about in the media and trying to understand why are we pulling the strings in a certain way? Why are we doing this? So and we started here now with the Anders going into the insane amount of money being poured in. Mm-hmm. What is your understanding of the real drivers for this? I mean, and I think there's a couple of things in motion at the same time. Let me start us off. I mean, so on one hand side, there's some sort of economic flywheel going around where we're investing in each other's pockets used to raise each other's stock price and make ourselves extremely rich.
We're thinking about OpenAI, Oracle, NVIDIA,
which is actually this is just inflating a bubble in order for a few people to get super rich. If I'm super cynical, this is one angle. then we have the angle, of course, like supremacy of AI. I mean, like Putin is the one who says it most clearly. It's the most important way to have power in power in war.
His quote is, "The one who rules in AI will rule the world."
Yeah,
That's from Putin.
I think I actually have that in one of in the AIAW documentary.
and then there's another one. Then there's another way of looking at this, and maybe this is also even down to Elon's strategy, that if you think about how do you win a war without fighting a single fight, it's by winning the semantic war, it's by winning the ideological war, and by simply having the ideology indoctrinated in everything we do, we're actually winning without fighting. So it's an ideology war here in terms of, what's the ideology of the big open LLMs, and they are very it has a term, right? It's the white. It has a very clear profile of the world in terms of values and ideology compared to the rest. So there's an ideology war we can talk about. There's a real physical war we can talk about. There's a just getting fucking rich scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme at scale. So what is your take on all this in trying to sort of sort out what are the real drivers? If we take off the makeup, what is this we are seeing? Why?
Well, I think most of the big 3 or 4 tech giants, they're thinking it's a winner. They're playing a winner takes all game. So we don't want to be number 3 because that's not where we're going to make money. It's worth it if we are the ones who reach the outer frontier limit first, and we get a foothold somewhere where the others won't be able to go for several years. So I actually think that they are doing this calculus. Risk, reward, okay, the reward might be huge, so it's worth taking more risk. Let's pour more money into it. But it's dangerous. What I think is dangerous now is when you see how leverage is coming into this, how they're actually taking loans to finance the building of the AI factories. And not only I've learned a new term here, neo clouds or whatever. It's not OpenAI building it. It's not even Oracle building it for OpenAI. It's some subcontractor building it. And the subcontractors are financing their building with loans. And now even Meta is taking loans to finance their paying of the subcontractors who are taking loans. And now we're getting very close to how the housing bubble was built up, right? So it's a property
subprime problem.
Yeah, not subprime particularly, but it's a property. It might end up being very much like a property bubble, but we're not there yet. But I think it's a warning sign.
Yeah, and time is flying away here, and I know you met some really, really interesting people that I think a lot of people, and including myself, would love to hear your view on. And that includes the biggest, the most valuable company in the world these days, NVIDIA, and Jensen Huang. But also in Sweden, we have Klarna and Sebastian Sietmakowski. And I would be really interested to hear about how was the meeting with them.
Okay, Jensen Huang. He's an American. He's a CEO of a big American company. He's slick like hell. He knows how to deliver one-liners. He knows how to do the talk, Yeah. So to get beyond that, you have to ask some follow-up questions. Right. But even then, it's difficult to surprise him.
Goran, did you get drunk with him?
Then maybe he said the naked truth, right? Mm-hmm.
Let's not go there. But it was more slick and more. But could you get behind the scene, or could you sense him, or could you?
He's so professional. It was difficult to get him unbalanced, and I didn't even try because I had not an ocean of time, and I had I want to get answers to these 3 questions basicly. So,
and what was the story? What was the main part of the conversation? I mean,
one was why do you think that this physical AI thing and human robots is worth investing in? Why do you really think it will work? That was one. And the other one was actually agents. To what extent will it actually play out? Yeah. And so that was Jensen. Sebastian Szymantkowski is also very interesting. He seemed to be either very frank or has decided that his message track is to be the truth sayer, because he packages his vision or his worries about how AI will affect the job market as okay. Everybody else says this is not going to be a problem. There will be so many new jobs and so on. But hey, guys, I don't think that's really true. I think it will be a tough time, at least getting there. Look at me. I sacked almost 40% of my staff, or he didn't, but they have shrunken the workforce and they have not recruited as much as they otherwise might have done given their growth. At least that's what he says. And I think it makes some sense. So he kind of likes to go the other way, I think, that and not as polished, but well thought through anyway.
Interesting.
I mean, like, so if you wrap up all the different people you talked to now, was it anything that stood out as a big aha moment, or the most weirdest, or I didn't expect that, or something that really made you pause and think on the way home or when you were editing? So
what a great question. No, actually, my biggest epiphany was probably to realize that humanoid robots are really on the verge of becoming something. So C3PO is getting real.
It will get there.
But they have a lot of training to do. And the other one was also, AI agents, that can be pretty cool. But, the really cool stuff isn't off the shelf.
No.
You have to work for it. So it was not one grandiose enlightenment. It was more like, okay, it's a work in progress.
But it's also something that tells you something about how to go about this and build projects around this. And I get so frustrated with how naive Swedish industry is when they're trying to implement and adopt these things, and when they're making naive bets that it obviously won't work. And
how are they naive?
I don't think they. I think they're a little bit too much off the shelf. They don't understand, how to make an agent work properly. You need the right context and data and etc. So all the stuff that you said for your personal agent, imagine doing that in an enterprise. That means you technically need to connect it to all the different things.
You have to call the plumber.
You need to call the
and
plumber,
the electrician.
Cool. From all of these kind of deep dives, and I would love to have some kind of short answers now, but I'm sure you won't get there. But let's try. But I would love to hear a bit more, perhaps. What do you think about potential political kind of implications here, or societal kind of implications, if these kind of prophecies go into force, so to speak? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, you have a good case scenario and you have a bad case scenario. The good case scenario is that this will unleash so much productivity that finally Europe and the part of the world that has been lagging might catch up and have a growth that will make more people get them more wealth, and we'll have less to fight about.
That would be nice.
The dystopian scenario is that, hey, this will kill more jobs than it will replace or find new ones, at least in the short and midterm. So we will have some sort of technological, if not mass unemployment, increased unemployment, and those who are hit are everybody under the upper class, at least those who have to work for a living. And we'll get more social unrest, more populism, and less acute future in the upcoming decades. That's the bad scenario.
So the two scenarios, once again, a spectrum, and anything that leans in one or other direction.
I wouldn't dare to say, but I can say one more thing. I think that notwithstanding whether we are going in either of these directions, you have an open goal for a lot of politicians in power and governmental agencies and businesses to pick a lot of low-hanging fruits using AI in a sensible way that can give us a lot of good benefits here today, and that can build a stepping stone for a better educated population and more competitive businesses here today and tomorrow as tomorrow, not in 5 years.
And I think this is
and those low-hanging fruits, many of them are still unpicked.
and I think you can build on that to what you said right in the beginning. It's also about us getting in there and shaping this and not letting the tech bros shape it. So in the same stance, go for the low-hanging fruits, get yourself blood on the shirt, go in and get there, learn about it, and then ultimately understand what you think about it in order to influence it in the right way. So there's both the low-hanging fruit angle, and it's only if you're not doing it, if you're not working your agent, you're not going to learn shit about it.
No, and if you don't dare to fail, you won't learn anything. So the bitter truth is, experiment. Only then, and only by that, you can know what works and not doesn't work for you in your profession, in your opinion.
Isn't that the fundamentals of democracy? If you don't participate, if you don't engage, how can you be part of it? How can you shape it? So I think it's, I mean, like I'm doing that as a metaphor or analogy. Like, we're standing on the sidelines. It's not good for any purpose to stand on the sidelines. That's what I'm trying to get to.
I don't think you have to put that democratic layer over everything, over that. I just pure and simple. If you want to be able to cut through the hype, and see what is really useful and what is shit, there's only one way: to discover it by yourself.
Yes.
There's not a manual you can read. There's not a course you can go.
Exactly.
But you mentioned an interesting point, and I'd just like to understand a bit more. You said potentially it could be an equalizer for Europe that is lagging behind, of course, to US and China. And perhaps you can even think about other developing countries and see, well, of course, they are behind, and perhaps it could be an equalizer, not equalizer in terms of Dancing Washington kind of killing one, but equalizer in terms of actually people catching up. Do you think that can be the case, actually?
Well, what do you need? Then you have to ask yourself, what do you need to use these tools in a good way? Well, actually, I think I lean more towards it would be more of an equalizer than not, because just getting the first leverage, the first benefit of using these tools. I mean, they're not very costly. You can do very well with many basic versions. So if you're just entrepreneurial enough, and if you're just creative enough, you could start a business with very little capital that also could go global. So, but I don't know what do you need to, since you are then on a global market, you have to have something very, very unique to bring to it.
I think.
And well, I don't know, why should some developing country be more poised to succeed than some other? Maybe if they're just not less prone to succeed from the start, then we're at even starting blocks, and that would be probably helpful for them.
I have an answer to that. We talked about, we've been touching it today, but you can make it even sharper. We have an invention technology curve which goes faster, and people and we say the real adoption will be slower, and ultimately it's not going to be 5 years, it's going to be 50 years. So the real competitive advantage lies in how can you be faster in absorbing and adopting things. And in that sense, this is the leveler. If countries in Africa has a more higher curiosity in learning and are more poised to adopt things instead of resisting things, they will follow the invention curve better.
If you don't have structures and ways of working that are so engraved that it takes more time to ditch them, and you're more prone to trying new things. And I don't know if that's the case in such countries that we're talking about or not. I don't know them well enough to say anything about it.
We can see developing countries have been leapfrogging a bit in the past.
Yeah, in other technologies, they just went by cable phones and went to cellular phones, or made good without big banks and went to fintech directly. So
I mean, we have Eric Hugo guest here, who we actually had we had one topic here on AI apartheid. So we're always talking about the AI divide, and we are comparing Europe to the great tech giants. But then we need to understand what happens when you compare Europe to Africa, or when you basically when ICA is enforcing a farmer in India to use 3G and 4G as a way to measure their crop and all that, when they can't even afford a phone, right? And all of a sudden we have AI apartheid, tech apartheid. So it's and his main storyline here is like, there's a fork in the road right now. How much can we go open source? What really made what happened as one leveler was, Linux and open source allowed Africa to be part of the software wagon, where they would not have been able to do that 20 years ago if they were licensed software everywhere. So once again, open source as a key enabler to then actually jump on this whole bandwagon.
But getting back to the question here about what potentially developing countries, and perhaps even Europe that is behind, could potentially leapfrog in. I'd just like to test an idea with you and see if you agree with it. We can certainly see that some countries, especially US and China, is investing an insane amount of money right now. And that is a lot for pre-training and being in these kind of large foundational models. But then it's another thing to do the adoption that Henrik is speaking about a lot all the time. And perhaps, we could, in developing countries and in Europe, also focus more on the adoption part, and perhaps not invest this huge amount in building these kind of super large foundational models that will not be practical anyway. If we will have, we've been predicted that it will be like 5-ish kind of super big foundational models in the future that will be so big that no one really can use it for practical purposes because it will be so expensive to use. But they can be used to distill smaller models, and we will have thousands, if not millions, of SLMs, small, large language models, that will be the one that's used.
More specialized ones.
Yes.
Perhaps one being trained on Swedish language, or one being
specific
good
use
for
cases, perhaps also with some kind of latent reasoning going on, etc. But if we then, potentially go that route, could it be an opportunity for Europe and perhaps developing countries to stop wasting, if I call it that? Someone has to develop, but still, we could skip that step and then start to use them for practical purposes. Could that be a way?
That would be a tempting scenario, definitely. And I'm thinking about something that I was told by Victor Ripabelli, the founder of Synthesia, the Danish guy. When I met him in Copenhagen at Tech Barbecue in August, I was walking around doing interviews, interviewing people from this business, different tech companies. What do you think about this aim of Europe achieving digital sovereignty? Is it desirable, and is it realistic? And he was very much like, you know what, we can't and we shouldn't compete with the tech giants in the Silicon Valley the way that you were talking about, Anders. We should focus on the applications and exactly what you're into, because that's the only realistic thing. And maybe that's even the from a societal perspective most has best return on investment.
Yes.
Because that's closer to what we actually want in daily life.
What do you
who has asked for AGI? Who woke up one morning and said, "Oh, Jesus, what a boring Monday. I miss AGI." It's more like, "Oh, why am I late to work again?
No, but
why isn't there an app that gives me the shortcut?"
A set of small SLMs works together as an agent. So it still could be AGI. It's just it's not the super big ones. And it could be much more expensive. I actually do think it's an opportunity for Europe.
And AGI?
No. To do the adoption
rather
than the building the foundation models.
If you think about it, focus on the real problem you want to solve and work backwards, reverse engineer like we always do.
For instance, in school, how do we get everybody to reach their full potential? How can we use AI in that? What kind of products can we
that has always
develop?
been the way to be successful, to laser sharp on a big, hairy problem and solve it better than anyone else. With AGI as a vision, it's all just fluff, isn't it? As a problem.
It's also to some part a religion.
It becomes almost like a religion, but because one of the angles here I think we've taken over and over again has been the SLM part. And let me do the example with sovereignty. I can argue why we need to have sovereignty. Okay, we need to have our own identity, we need to have our own language, we need to have our own ideology, and then even in war times, we not want to rely on anyone else. But then you can think of how can we reach sovereignty? What does it mean to have sovereignty? Does it mean that you actually need to build the supermodel yourself? Or can I actually distill a Swedish model? Can I get to sovereignty in a much more simpler way? And we have a very good example with KB Whisperer as an example, yeah? We use a Llama model, an open model, and then we train it and distill it on Swedish language. And we make a much smaller model with high quality Swedish language and speech, and we can make a model that completely blows OpenAI out of the water when it comes to language in Swedish and sound.
For those particular use cases.
For this particular use case.
Where good Swedish is required, yeah.
So when we wanted to build a Swedish model, we could get a sovereign Swedish model that is now encapsulated over here, even if we trade it on a large language model. So it's also about, did we really need to build the big model? I mean, like Love has been proponent for this for years. We don't need an old LLM. We can distill a lot of SLMs the way we want it. So it's also a matter of practically what is the real goal with sovereignty. That's the goal. Okay, I can technically get that in another way.
Do you need to build the ships as well? But I'm curious, Anders, with your background, how relevant do you think, and to what extent, that we stand on our own legs, so to speak?
I think it's very hard to do in coming years, but I don't think we need to. And I think there will be a lot of inventions, and we're actually good at inventions, not innovation, but inventions in Europe, meaning that we can come up with really good ideas, similar to how China was forced to do much more efficient models because of their export restrictions of GPUs. So they fixed that and do that all the time. I think we can do the same. I think actually that will be a great opportunity. I think we just need to focus on that a bit more. And we do have all the problems that the person you mentioned, the laureate that mentioned, that we have a big market fragmentation in Europe, and we need to fix those kind of things. But I think there is a real opportunity for us to leapfrog a bit and focus on application and let others fight it out, because it will, in the end, go to much more energy efficient models, and those are the only ones that are going to be used in practice. The big one will be used for, the super big one can do that for very important things and perhaps national security kind of things. But in practice for companies, no one will use the super big ones. And that's a great opportunity. Let's skip that and do the practical things. That's a great opportunity, I think.
And just to add to that, I think the difference here when we had like, what episode is this? 100 and 180, 169. So 169 episodes with great people talking about these things. Then some patterns emerge in terms of almost like, which race are we in? Why are we playing a game that someone in the US has thought up as a race? And why do we now do a mimicking Me Too kind of race in Sweden on that? Why don't we take a step back and look at what is the competition we're in? Mm-hmm. Which game should we play? And then I think this is where Anders is now coming, and I'm supporting him wholeheartedly. You can flip the way of, what is the criteria? What is winning? And all of a sudden now, it's not about the biggest model. It's about the smartest model. It's about the cheapest, useful.
That's what Simon Johnson spoke about.
Yes.
When I asked him, what do you think Europe should do? And then he actually said that we should do what you're doing nowadays. We should see, okay, what is our unique opportunity now? Okay, we need to invest in defense. We need really huge leverage in that area. So why don't we put our focus on using AI in this field? That is something where there's money flowing to. That is somewhere where there's a societal need, so that there can be support for it. And then that could be our niche, or at least one of them. And the other one was, he said, okay, the rest of the world is denying, or at least perhaps the leaders in the United States, denying climate change. So why don't you use technology in a wise way to find means of fighting that, or making the transition
and winning
from
that
carbon
and being the most competitive
better
in this industry.
Yeah, and I'm just replicating what he said, but he was into this. Find your way of making use of the technology in real life.
Yes.
Perfect.
Then there will be adoption and money and societal benefits.
Yes.
And given the time, I'd love to hear a bit more about your personal views on this, Alexander. But I'm also trying to find a good positive ending here. But if we, before we go there, thinking a bit more about the potential bad endings, and we can think about, there could be a concentration of power. What do you think will happen if we just take China and US to start with? Do you have any thoughts about, who potentially will be continuing? A lot of people are saying that China will be the biggest economy now in a couple of years. Do you think they will also take the lead in AI as well?
I think then I will fall back and rest upon what I have learned from the previous years of Nobel economics laureates whom I've talked to about this, especially Daron Acemoglu, because what they got the prize for was the research about institutions' importance for kind of wealth and growth. And everything they say is contradicted by China. It's like the big exception.
Okay.
It's not a democracy.
Yeah.
It's not pluralistic. But they claim that, hey, we just haven't seen the end of it yet. So it's an exception now, but just wait and see, kind of. So we'll see. But so far, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't bet on on that empire's soon demise. And I forgot the question, but
I mean, for one is the dominance. Will it be a concentration of power? You can think about countries as such, and then think about the US or China and see who will dominate. And perhaps, and it would be nice if you're right, or the people that you're referencing are right, that China is the exception, but still some indicators are saying that they could actually take the lead in various terms. But then we can also think about companies. And we have the Elon Musk companies of the world. We have the tech giants of the world. So will it be, I think no one is doubting that we are seeing a concentration of power for the tech giants. They are in the top 10 of the most valuable companies in the world today. Will that continue to rise, or will it actually be an equalizer, so to speak, where other companies can start to catch up? What do you think, if you take that question specifically, will it continue to increase in concentration of power, and Nvidia and Google and Meta will just continue to take more and more economic wealth?
Well, suppose that we are in a financial AI bubble and it will burst. Then it could hit some of these companies pretty bad. I'm thinking about OpenAI, for instance. But in the leftovers, so to speak, there will be some pretty good value to be picked up by others. People will go to other places. They will do their own startups. So the bits and pieces will be picked up and maybe be the beginning of something new. So that could be one good positive side of a bubble bursting, if there is a bubble. So that's one way to look at it. The other is, if they get so big and they get so powerful, in the end, I am pretty sure that people in democratic power will try to regulate them out of being in a monopolistic power, at least in countries where they have good legislation when it comes to market dominance and monopolistic abuse. So, let's just hope that those countries are not corrupt by then, so that they actually use the legislation. So of that I am hopeful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Standard Oil was broken up once.
Right. And even though Elon got a $1 trillion deal here recently, it still could turn out. Right. Let's not go there.
Yeah.
Cool. What are you most scared about, though?
Most scared about? No, I'm not so scared.
Okay.
For instance, when it comes, I suppose the question is when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
Well, on one hand, I could feel, I'm thinking about my kids. There's so much talk about, okay, now with AI and AI agents, there's not enough perhaps junior positions, entry-level positions, because you can just use an AI to do your PowerPoint and your research and your presentation and whatever. So if you're a junior lawyer, what's left to do if you don't? Well, how can we raise to the ranks, so to speak? And I think that what people are saying as a solution, that we have to rethink university and see it more like apprenticeship that has to come earlier, so that there's not a clear lineage between now I'm studying and now I'm working. For instance, I think that what Palantir has done with this trainee program, Alex Karp is like saying, "Oh, universities suck. You just learn the doctrine. You're not a free thinker. Come to us." And anyway, I think he's onto something there. And that that might not be a catastrophe after all if we reform the education system. On the flip side here, I'm thinking about one of my kids who has cognitive challenges. I see how AI could help her a lot in her life, looking forward, functioning on a much better level in society, thanks to aids that these technologies will bring her. You could just use an ordinary chatbot and get quite far.
Do you think AI, if we're trying to flip now to a positive ending in some way?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards it now.
You're positive,
I'm on that way.
But we can see AI helping out a lot with education and also for people to improve their cognitive skills in different ways. But we could also think, potentially AI can help a lot with healthcare, potentially, and finding cures and drug discovery in a way that we can't do otherwise, and perhaps solve energy crisis and fix the fusion.
The research part and that we haven't even talked about. That is truly the most promising and hopeful side of using AI, pushing the frontiers of knowledge. As a researcher.
Because that's something we sometimes forget about, that where it's somewhere that we have already seen the fantastic breakthroughs with the AlphaFolds and everything like that, is the acceleration comes from AI in the fundamentals of research, and then you have a network effect of that.
And that's actually what Joel Mokyr, this year's economics laureates, one of the three, highlights as his most hopeful thing, how AI will be pushing the frontiers of knowledge like never before.
Yeah.
And that makes him very hopeful.
Alexander, I think we will skip the standard kind of question, because
we started with our ending question with the spectrum. That's our ending question. You already answered it.
Oh, I'm like 60%, 65% on the positive side.
But Alexander, what are the next AI episodes going to be about?
Very good question.
That was my question as well.
I haven't really thought about it, actually.
You have to ask AI, perhaps.
Yeah, I could do that, but I don't want to. Because I want to make that up myself. That's I want, speaking of this, I've come to the conclusion what's important for us, not only to be successful, but to be happy in a world with AI, is that we have agency. Yeah. We have a voice. The more human I can be, the more you will want to listen to me in a world where there'll be shitloads of AI generated good, but maybe average content, and some also very good. But even if the very good is just as good as me, I'm hopeful that you would want to choose the human version, because we are humans. I think we like humans more than things.
Well said. Cool.
But I didn't pick out the episode there.
No, you didn't. That's a cliffhanger. I want you to invite me again.
Oh,
Then I'll deliver.
oh, perfect.
That's a good one. Taken.
Thank you so much, Alexander Norén. Always a pleasure to speak with you, and you have so many insights. I'm still envious with all the people that you meet, and you have a perfect, I think, job, and I hope you can keep it for a long time, but with the help of AI as well. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks.
Looking
Enjoy
forward
being
to having
here.
you back here, man. Take care.